Good evening. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and thank you for joining me on this edition of Technology Access Television. Well, I hope today proves to be one of those inflection points or historic moments. After 13 years of doing this show, you know, things have come and gone, and I'm hoping that I can be the bearer of some amazing news today. In the conversations we're going to talk about and the friend that I have here today, I think this could be a very pivotal point. As you know, we've come through some very, how can we say, interesting times in our economy of late. And while the technology community has had some fits and starts, many people feel like Chicago is absolutely poised to explode with entrepreneurial activity. And one of the people who probably believes that as much or more than anybody I know is with me today. And I think he's going to be here to talk about some of the exciting things that we can absolutely lay our hands on. You know, it's not just hype. Things are really going on that are making a difference, but more importantly, people are making a difference because they're choosing to give back and help build this community so that some people can get a leg up in starting their businesses and creating jobs and generating wealth and opportunity here in Chicago. And I think somebody who is really making every good effort to make a good difference is here with me today. And let's hear what he has to talk about. Maybe there's some breaking news that we'll share with you, and hopefully you'll find out something that'll get you excited as well. My guest today is Kevin Willer. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Bruce. I appreciate it.
I'm glad. I should say that you are officially, although I know you got an official title, but your unofficial titles are probably too long to mention in the course of this half-hour show, but Chicagoland Entrepreneurial Center, CEC.
Yeah, that's right.
You came into that post, and a lot of people looked at you like, have you lost your mind? What is it that you want to do with this thing? But how did you get hooked into being a part of the Chicagoland Entrepreneurial Center, if you could talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me, Bruce. I really appreciate it. You know, I was with Google, a little company here in Chicago.
That's right. In fact, you were what, this first or second employee?
The second employee. I helped co-found the office with a guy by the name of John DeCola.
That's right.
We opened a little business office in December of 2000, so about 11 years ago
company,
now.
Google.
Unknown company, and we hacked it out and all that, and grew it up to about 500 people in Chicago over the last 10 years.
Wow.
But what was really exciting, and it leads to what I'm doing today, was when we were starting out, nobody had ever heard of Google. We were a little startup.
How did you even find out about them so early on?
You know, I'd like to say I had a crystal ball and I knew what I was doing, and I knew it was going to become a verb in the dictionary.
Because I think, wasn't your email like Kevin@Google?
It was Kevin@Google.com.
So you were the first Kevin.
I was the first Kevin@Google.com. I was employee 185.
Wow.
I guess, so it was the first office outside of San Francisco and New York, and it was the Chicago kind of Midwest business headquarters.
Wow.
But I honestly got lucky. I got a call from a headhunter. And
Okay.
I was looking for a job in Chicago to move back home, and I got a good call, and I followed up on it and took the leap, and it worked out pretty well.
I think so. Sometimes those headhunters can do some good, huh?
But I'll tell you that the interesting thing was back when we were in 2001, and there wasn't a lot of startup activity, or there was startup activity, but the .com crash had happened, and nobody really wanted to work with the startup community. Some people around town gave us a call and said, "How can I introduce you to some folks that might be able to help you grow here and all that?" And I always remember that as really being so important to us getting to the next level over time here.
Well, you kind of made it your mission to really be kind of a public connector with Google, because I think we met at the Mayor's Council of Technology Advisors, and you kind of made every meeting, as I remember. And while people around those tables, again, represented a very diverse community, and a lot of them didn't really maybe even then know who Google was, but you came out and you supported the thing, and you were listening and trying to be involved and inviting people over to understand what Google was all about.
Yeah, well, I mean, Google is one of those brands that people, have an opinion about. They usually love it, and it's just one of those brands that they really engage with. They use it in their everyday lives through one of the various products. And, I took it upon myself because I love Chicago. I'm from here, and I wanted to see the technology community, grow here. I thought Google could play a good role in that. So I made it kind of my personal mission to do a lot of the civic development in Chicago and make the brand accessible to the community. And we did a lot of events, to make that happen.
That's exactly right. We had the Chicago Black Journalist over there, and me and Art Norman had a wonderful program.
That's
and so many different groups have come in and out of there. And of course, people didn't realize that, but beyond just the sales and marketing staff, which you were involved with, that there was a team of developers, because you made a pretty important acquisition here along the way. And was that Costello and his team?
Dick Costello, now the CEO of Twitter, out west, but he had started FeedBurner with Eric Lunt, and Eric Lunt is the CTO of BrightTag here now. We had in 2005, Google wanted to hire an engineer named Brian Fitzpatrick, and they reached out to him and they decided to offer him a job, and they said, are you going to move to New York or Mountain View? And he said, no, I'm staying in Chicago. I live in Chicago. My wife will leave me if I leave. So he started the engineering presence there, and there's I think about 100 engineers at Google Chicago right now. Also the FeedBurner acquisition that you referenced, and then the DoubleClick acquisition of Performix, that brought in some engineering talent as well. So,
and this is still largely unknown to a lot of folks, because again, when the name like Google or Microsoft or one of these, and I used to say that all the time, is that they're so, with Accenture and with you guys and a lot of different companies here, there is a huge presence, but still sometimes people don't feel it.
That's right.
They're not connected to it. They don't know about it. And so what you're doing now.
And that's a good, that's a good point though, because Microsoft has 600-700 people here.
Right.
They do a lot of stuff in Chicago. It's not all Oracle. I just learned the other day that LinkedIn has 100 people here. Never know that.
I didn't even know Facebook has an office here. In fact, one of
my old friends, Randy Robinson is one of my good friends. He's over there. And Twitter has a nice office here that is run by Brent Hill, who is one of the FeedBurner guys and Google guys. So, you're seeing more and more big companies realize they definitely need a large presence in the Midwest.
Now, I've been in the computer business most of my adult life, and Chicago was always a sales office or a marketing office, and I was always out in Schaumburg or Oak Brook or something. Most of the time I was on O'Hare getting on the plane going somewhere else.
That's right.
And people felt like, they have these sales offices, but there's not decision makers. There's not people who are committed to the community.
That's right.
So one of the reasons that the technology, at least the IT and the software and services area, didn't necessarily have a big presence is because there weren't Chicago-based companies, but more importantly, for the breadth of the industry, people making decisions. And so when we look at the Boston area, we look at San Francisco, we look at the Bay Area, guys that started companies gave back to the community.
That's right.
And started VC companies and then brought the next round. And along with the money, they said, look, I can tell what this company needs to get to the next level. You need to know this guy. I need to make a phone call. And so it was that network that really built companies in those two cities. And so now Chicago has got all the talent in the world, but where's the network? Where's the network?
Well,
where's the money?
That's something we're working on a bit, but I think what you're seeing here now is you're finally seeing some big successes that we can kind of say are, these are our landmark successes. I mean, let's remember, Groupon gets a fair amount of, flack, but that is the second biggest IPO or the first biggest IPO since Google in 2004. So, Groupon has really put, I think, Chicago on the map nationally and globally as a place you can build a world-class internet or technology company. But more importantly, and this is what is exciting to me, is the founders of Groupon are reinvesting that capital back into new companies, right? So they're not just keeping it to themselves and going and moving away. They're really reinvesting in the community.
Well, this is huge. Companies. This is huge.
Absolutely.
A lot of guys that started some phenomenal companies over the years that when companies got to a certain size and maybe were acquired by somebody, the guys, there was, the old U.S. Robotics where some
I worked there way back in the day.
Well,
I know.
Cheryl is a good friend of mine. Casey was a good. In fact, I met Casey when U.S. Robotics was under the L track on Lake Street.
Oh, wow.
And I went and knocked on the door, and I actually thought it was a robotics company, and I was trying to sell him something. And so I met Casey, Mike McKillop, just a whole bunch of guys. But unfortunately, when 3Com came calling and took those guys out, that was a terrible loss to Chicago, and it really didn't recover. And in fact, some people ask me, "Hey, when's the last time you seen Casey?" And I'm like, "Man, I haven't seen Casey in 20 years."
That's right.
And that's unfortunate. Again, and so now we've got to figure out a way to connect and to engage. And so, like you say, Eric and Brad and what they're doing with Lightbank is really huge. It seems like the seed capital, angel capital, we were talking just before we came on air about the business plan competition and what Professor Kaplan has done out at the U of C and how that's really built up to a great thing. We've got Stephen Rogers up at Northwestern and the great work that he's done. So the schools are doing their thing, but we still, it seems like some pieces are missing. So what do you got for us here?
So I would say, and the capital piece is a good one. The capital piece is a really, really important one. There are more sources of early stage capital coming up all the time here. You know, you have everything from the venture capital firms, but as well as all these angel groups, right?
And this is really because we always had the Golder Thomas and the institutional guys, and those guys were really bankers. They weren't VCs as much as they were doing private equity and the big deal, Madison Dearborn and all those guys. But now we have some guys that seem like I went to a thing, they had something they call office hours. And Carter and guys were in the house and they were talking to people. And they were giving them good feedback. And they were really interested. And I said, man, this is different.
Well, I know. And then you have other things too. I mean, you know, we've had this I2A fund in Chicago for a while. They're doing a new fund right now, brought in some new people. And then I think it's interesting, this IIVF, this Illinois Innovation Venture Fund that Orlando Saya is at the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, they're investing alongside other capital into startup companies. So, you know, you have a lot of different sources of capital now in those early stages. Now, the next step is making sure we have enough capital at the growth stage and all of that. The other thing I think about is talent, right? So, you know, you mentioned all the universities, and the universities are the bread and butter of what we have in Chicago and the Midwest. You need to have world-class universities, and we have two of the best business schools in the world. All of these great, you know, technical schools with IIT and UIC, and then UI Champaign down in Urbana. So you have a lot of talent here. What we're seeing now that I hadn't seen before, and tell me what you think, is the talent is staying more than ever before. It used to maybe get it educated here, and then it would go away and go work out on the coast somewhere. But it's staying here more than ever before, and more talent is coming here for our companies. So coming to work for a Groupon or a Braintree or a Grubhub, and they're sticking around afterwards and working for other, you know, digital startups in the Chicago area.
Well, this is a big thing, and you know, again, when I've been involved with the MIT Enterprise Forum for the last several years, and it's given me a chance to go to some of the different tech communities around the country, to you know, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, to Boston, out to La Jolla and those areas. And when you look like just surrounding the U of C, it's nothing. There are not a lot of places where businesses, if they want to locate and say, I want to stay in the area, just finding an office space, just finding, you know, one of the things that I've been on a soapbox really for a long time is that just having high-speed broadband connectivity in all communities, because people want to locate. Nobody's going to locate anywhere. They can't get some pipes.
That's absolutely
And we've got a lot of dark fiber and some other things. So now, you know, some of that is being addressed. In fact, you and I were talking about Chris Kennedy, and he really blew my mind talking about how the connectivity in the apparel mart led to all the excitement and enthusiasm. And people say, well, you know, they're more than just apparel companies.
Well,
in fact, the apparel guys are gone, and the developers are in there with all of these back offices.
Because it's so fast over there. You know, I mean, obviously Chicago, in such a kind of central place in the country with all the railroads going along here and all the fiber laid alongside of that, we are that nexus of high-speed access, and so we should have it for every community around Chicago, because it is, you know, a great, I mean, once you have access, there's so many doors open because of that. You can do so much with it. Now, you know, this project we announced this week, 1871, is really about creating one of those places for early stage companies to get together.
Tell us how the 1871 project came about, and if people want to find out more about it, they can go to
1871.com.
1871.com. Now, the name, of course, is synonymous with a historical event here in Chicago, the fire. But I know you guys, you and Matt Moog and some other guys, J.B. Prisker, were working on this project. What was the genesis of this 1871 project?
You know, Bruce, it's really, really straightforward. You know, we were all working in the community in various ways, talking to all the startups and all of this, and there was a lot of activity going on, a lot of new companies coming out of the woodwork, and we said, you know, what are the barriers to getting going? What are some challenges you face? And interestingly, talent and capital weren't as big of a deal. I mean, technical talent's always still an issue, but one of the big things that kept coming up was, where do I live? How do I work around other people, like-minded people, and be part of a community where I can get my work done, but I also can go be educated maybe in a class on how to market my company, or how to, design my website, or how to, think about my financing for my company. And then how can I plug into events and networking events and get to meet other talented people? And how could you put something like that all together into one place? So we got together and we said, we can do this. Let's go find a great space that's centrally located, that plugs into transportation, that would really be able to create a community like this.
Now there have been, incubator projects and fits and starts with these kinds of things. Certainly our hats off to Terry and to the folks at ITA, because TechNexus has been a phenomenal success.
That's right. That's
right. And, when I remember when Terry and Fred, because we used to meet at a little building over on Clinton or somewhere.
Right.
There was half the size of this studio.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden they say, hey, look, we're going to take on that space. And a lot of people thought Terry was crazy when he said take it on. But so many companies got started in TechNexus and have gone on and leveraged the capital and everything. So that just proved that was the tip of the iceberg.
That's
and
right.
So now here you come along. And how big is 1871 going to be?
1871 is 50,000 square feet. So 50,000 square feet of co-working space, of event space, of classrooms, of offices for maybe, venture capitalists.
And this is going to be inside the Merchandise Mart.
On the 12th floor of the Merchandise Mart, on the northwest corner. So great views of River North. It's high enough so it's over the buildings. And then my favorite part is looking out over at the kind of intersection of the Chicago River, going to the North Branch and the South Branch. And really this historical building that plugs in, to transportation networks like the bike lanes and the CTA and the buses and all of that. It's really been a great experience working within this structure and this historical building, because it offers so much to this community, and it's really kind of the perfect place for this plan because of the large floor plans.
Yeah, it's like wide open. Anybody ever been in there? It's wide open.
That's right.
From interior designers and of course, there's so many things that go on there. Tech Week was
That's
there.
Right. Tech Week was
there last year. It's going to be there
Howard
again this year.
Tellman with Flashpoint Academy, and across the hall from us, from where we're going to be, is Razorfish, a digital ad agency that's doing a lot of cool things. In the
Are they part of
space as well.
Publicis too?
Publicis, yeah, they're part of that holding company as well. So great neighbors. We're really excited about that. So it's really going to be an interesting project, and we're going to open it in the spring. So
now, will entrepreneurs from all over, not people with just an inside connection, because they've got a lot of startups going over there in the Groupon building.
That's right.
But people are kind of friends of this or that and the other, and a lot of people don't know. In fact, somebody told me the other day that that's as far north or far south as some people wanted to go, that they didn't want to. They thought that building, the Groupon building, was kind of out of the way. But again, at the Merchandise Mart, you got the Brown Line, and the trains get off right there. You're right there at the river, so it's really convenient. But do you think that is still going to bring people out of the Hyde Park and the USC and the South Side and out from the West Side and Oak Park and these places, that they'll be saying, hey, maybe we can come downtown and do something there, and this will be open to all different types of companies, and not just tech, but maybe some other companies too.
I mean, the spirit of it definitely is, we're not going to have wet labs, we're not going to have R&D facilities. I mean,
go to IT for that.
I mean, this is going to be a bit more, it's definitely going to be focused on the digital kind of startups and technology-based solutions, but technology-based solutions in healthcare or travel or marketing or business services. It doesn't matter what vertical or industry it is in, but definitely digitally and tech-enabled businesses in it. It's going to be run, though, this is really important, as a nonprofit. And it's open, it's community, it's open source. We have invited everybody to be a part of it. So, every university could have an office there. Every venture capital firm, every industry organization could have a membership there and be a part of this. So this is not aligned to anywhere. It's really open source. It's supported by the state and by the city. So you have really a place that all are welcome. Now, we're going to have people apply, though, because you become a member, right? And you'll have the opportunity to have a reserve desk where you work there every day if you're a startup, and you go to the same desk every day. And we have a little over 100 desks like that we're hoping to fill. And then we'll have shared co-working space, which will be more of a membership.
This reminds me, I had a conversation with the folks from Accelerate. And I said, okay, now you guys take how many people into your program? and I say, how many people apply?
Yep.
What happens to all the people that apply that don't get in? Isn't that a fair size audience of people that maybe could use some mentoring,
absolutely,
some kind of hooking up, some engagement that they're a whole. So now
I would say both too. I mean, I think we'll see a lot of people who might have applied to an accelerator program like Accelerate or Healthbox or Impact Engines coming up, those kinds of things.
Right.
And we might have an incubator inside of this place because it's really a big co-working place that could have an incubator inside of it. But what I would think about is the people, to your point, who maybe don't need one of those programs. They just want to be in a great community environment and work on their business there, and maybe they already have their mentors or want to kind of plug into them in a place like this. So this will be a great option for people who maybe an incubator or accelerator isn't exactly right for.
Will bandwidth be a part of what comes along with it?
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing I said, I've said to the guy, I've joked a little bit, if we have desks and coffee and high-speed bandwidth, we're good to go. The rest of it we'll figure out over time, but that is the most important thing. And we announced this week that Comcast is going to be a big supporter of this from a bandwidth standpoint, and that's really important.
That is important
because we're running this. I mean, we're running it as a nonprofit, so the economics aren't great of these things. So we need to have both a combination of people. Will pay rent to be there. This is not free, and that's why we're taking applications.
Has anything like this gone on? I know you get around and you're involved. In fact, if we got a little more time, I want to talk a little bit about Startup Illinois.
Yeah, absolutely.
And plugging into Startup America. But as you've engaged with Startup America and Startup Illinois, is there anything else like this going on that you can pattern this after?
Absolutely.
Or is Chicago in a very unique place of doing something in a huge marquee building like this? Are we out kind of finally on the cutting edge of something instead of following here?
I'd like to say our approach is unique and that we are ahead in that way. But candidly, these co-working spaces around the country have been around for a while. We actually went around to a bunch of them, like the Cambridge Innovation Center, across from MIT, and General Assembly in New York, and the Hub in San Francisco, Plug and Play. I mean, there's a lot of these around the country, and we have some here, but we needed more. There was more demand than there was supply here. So, but I think the approach we took of we've been working on this for about 9 months formally, and trying to include the community and get feedback from a lot of entrepreneurs on what they needed and what kind of place should look like.
What role is CEC going to play in this?
So that was something else we announced this week. The CEC, being a 501c3 nonprofit, we're going to be the management and the operator and the programmer of this place. So we're going to be curating the classes and curating the events, and we're going to be taking the applications and actually running the facility. So it's really exciting because the CEC has been called a center for a long time, but as you know, Bruce, we never actually had a center. So
Aon is a little tough cookie with the security and getting in and out of that building.
And the MART is the security. I mean, it's really easy to get in and out of the MART. We wanted to make sure that was possible. And the Aon building's a great building, but really the MART's perfect for this.
So as we wrap up this, and this is just wonderful news, and I know you're excited. Obviously, I can just see the smile on your face. You're loving this. You jumped into something that was a little bit, and it seems like that your best hopes have been fulfilled because people came and I think a lot of it is your personality. People felt that you brought an open book, open mind. You say, look, I don't have any axe to grind. I don't have any problem with anybody.
That's right.
And people responded and said, hey, what can we do to help you out? Because we need to make some moves in this area. But Startup Illinois, people have heard the President Obama talk about Startup America. He's got the two Steves and or the two cases.
Exactly.
Involved. But what does this really mean for Illinois? And can this be something that really gets both the policy and the infrastructure to really make entrepreneurship where it needs to be in terms of job creation in Chicago?
I think it is. I mean, I really applaud President Obama and the administration for thinking about the startups and not just concerning themselves with big business and all that, and saying, how can we help the early stage companies so we can create the next generation of great companies in the United States? Specifically in Illinois, we were the first state to raise our hand and say, we want to create Startup Illinois. We want to take this to a local level, and getting startups involved and letting them plug into this kind of national conversation. But really the value I think it brings, and I encourage all startups to apply for Startup Illinois through that website, do a search on it. Startup Illinois allows, early stage companies to plug into resources from corporations like Dell and Amex and Intel and Microsoft.
Yeah, it's a tremendous, it's like the high-tech motor club of benefits that keep on coming.
That's right.
And it's just a wonderful thing. So that, so Orlando,
Yep.
With what he's doing, the governor's
Yep.
support for this. And
The
so
ISTC, Matt Summey, and the Illinois Innovation Council are
So
doing
Startup
good things.
Illinois is a real thing.
Yep.
With real connectivity and real resource. In fact, I think you're going to have a meeting.
We're having an event on January 31st. It's a free event. It's you're going to be at the Museum of Contemporary Art. We're only going to have, there's a limited number of seats in the place, but it's going to be a celebration. It's a national celebration. It's going to be simulcast. They wanted to host it here in Chicago, in the middle of the country, but it's going to be simulcast around the country. Scott Case.
Right, one of these guys.
Scott Case will be here, and we'll have some great panelists that we're going to announce and a good discussion. So check out for more news on that. On Built in Chicago has some information on it, and it's really going to be an exciting event on January 31st.
I think this year clearly with what the guys from Lightbank and Groupon did with Chicago Ideas Week, that was huge. Tech Week. We started something a couple of years ago called the Chicago Convergence, and we had a wonderful kind of TED-like conference. There's like TED everywhere now,
That's right.
all over. But Chicago's really kind of humping. But if we can turn the corner here and make it inclusive and opening, you've created a relationship of being a guy that answers his own phone, responds to his own email.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to keep that up
I hope
when you
so.
go to this next level?
I think even more so, Bruce.
Okay.
I people will know where I'm going to be.
So they'll be able to find you now.
Be able to find me for sure. So, I think that's the important thing in Chicago. People want to collaborate. They want to work together. They want to be part of a community here. I think that, we really want the startups. If I had a goal, we want the startups to not be able to blame anything, for their success or failure. There should be no barriers to getting it done. It really should come down to them and their ability to execute against a business idea. We want to remove all the barriers, and 1871 is one of the moves into trying to do that.
Well, I think this is phenomenal. This is really just major news. You and I have been planning to get together for a little while, and it's interesting that it fell on this week. When
Serendipity.
So,
you had good timing.
So God is looking out for me and keeping me in the loop on these things.
Right.
People think I've got all the hookups, but a lot of it is just I'm just excited about this as you are, and for Chicago to make sure that, like you said, Groupon bore a lot of the weight of having a real win, and they got out the door with a big win and a big way. In fact, right where you were sitting, Andrew Mason, when he was still kind of a grubby wannabe grad student thinking about entrepreneurship, sat in that seat and talked about some of his ideas even before Groupon was really real. And now, of course, he's still here, very much involved. That's right. Brad and Eric are involved, so you're involved. I really love the fact that you could have packed it in, could have clipped some coupons, said I'm going to go be a professional e-trader in Maui.
Right.
But you said, no, I want to stay here and give a contribution back to this city. So my hat's off to you and to everybody supportive.
Thanks for the great
CEC.
work you're doing here. Really appreciate it.
Well, we're just getting started.
We're
just getting started. This is early in the year. Tech Access TV is always about getting information out where you can really get your hands on it. And now you know about 1871.com before anybody. You heard it here first. I don't care what anybody else says. You heard it here first. My guest, Kevin Willer, he's going to be there every day. I'm going to be there every other day. I may even have a desk in there myself. Hey, I want you to have one. So if you got any questions about it, go to our website, go to our Twitter, go to our Facebook page. We'll hook you up with Kevin and all the guys involved at 1871. Hey, keep watching Tech Access TV. Chicago's on a roll. It's going to keep on going. Have a good one.